Hi, I'm Femi OK. Welcome to the stream. How many times have you seen your African friends or family roll their eyes when they talk about some leaders on the African continent? Have a look here on my laptop. This is the Ibrahim Index of African Governance. It takes those eye rolls and applies data to them, asking Africans every year, what do you think about your leaders? What do you think about your countries? Mo Ibrahim will bring us the takeaway from the 2020 index. He is the chairman and founder of the Mo Ibrahim Foundation, and this is what he told us a little bit earlier.
In 2019, actually, we had the first decline in governance in Africa. And I must say here, we're talking about generally about Africa, 54 countries, because countries differ in what they're doing, but in general, we saw a decline. That is really worrying. And now we have the pandemic, and that is a major hit for Africa, not only in the health issues and the health services, but also the economic hit is huge. And we really worry about where we're going to go from here.
So where do we go from here? What do we do about perhaps a trend in African governance that's going in the wrong direction? I know you have ideas. You can jump into the YouTube comment section and be part of today's show. You are going to be in for a treat. I want you to consider this a masterclass in leadership across the African continent. Madam President, it is good to have you on the stream. Please tell our international audience. Maybe there might be one or two people who do not know your reputation. Introduce yourself.
Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, former president of the Republic of Liberia. Very proud to have served 2 6-year terms successfully and have turned it over to the successor through elections. And of course, of all, very, very proud to be the first democratically elected woman president in Africa.
It is very good to have you on our panel today. Mayor Yvonne, welcome to the stream. Tell everybody who you are.
Thank you, Femi. My name is Yvonne Aki-Sawyer. I'm the mayor of Freetown, the capital of Sierra Leone. And I came into office in May 2018 from a private sector background with a commitment to transform our city. And we've been working on a development plan, which is called just that, #TransTown.
Nice to have you. And former Minister Bobolo, tell everybody who you are. Welcome to the stream.
Thank you very much. My name is Pokolo Kinuendo, and I am an African economist, and I am the former Minister of Investment, Trade and Industry in Botswana.
I'm really curious about this idea that maybe Africa as a continent is in terms of governance. The citizens are not very happy across multiple different countries, Madam President. When you came into power, you were coming into power after a civil war, and one of your prime objectives was just to keep people in a peaceful situation. I can see a lot of similar situations across the African continent right now. What would be your guidance, your advice for those different countries and those different citizens, having experienced it yourself?
Leaders must continue to engage population, to have them participate and make them feel themselves as stakeholders, particularly young population. As you know, the young population in the world today are going to be the most dynamic in countries. And also we need to listen to the people in communities, in cities, respect their priorities, recognize their capacities. And so I believe that the index, Mo Ibrahim Index, IAG for 2019, that has introduced citizens' perception, young people perception, would tell a big story to all leaders about what you need to do, show that you respond to the needs of the people and you keep them feeling that they're a part of what the country wants to succeed, that they benefit and they contribute with all the leaders toward a common goal of development and prosperity for citizens.
Yvonne, there's a lot of pressure on leaders across the African continent. They need to do this for their citizens, and why isn't there better governance? But the reason you came into politics was because you weren't happy with what was happening in Sierra Leone. You rolled up your sleeves and you got to work. So it's almost like civil society has a role to play. You were dissatisfied and then you did some action. Tell us about that.
It's interesting you call it civil society. I came from the private sector, that voluntary civil society space as people often think about it. But what is clear is that we all have a role. It's I think the engagement of communities, and that's precisely the approach that I've taken in office, which is to bring to bear an approach which has community ownership, it has technology, and it has performance management at its heart. So the dissatisfaction really, I think, is a message about governance, that, the people, we the people who want the services, who need the services, who need to see development, should and can step forward to be a part of that. But those who are now in governance have a role to ensure that that space is there, and it's not always there. And I think it's really important that, Madame President talked about participation. There are practical ways in which this can be done. 2 examples or 3 examples of that. When I came into office, we engaged 15,000 of our residents in focus groups. Beyond that, in our Freetown, the Tree Town, which is a climate change, climate mitigation strategy, we've engaged communities as tree stewards. And very recently, just in the last week, we've our digital town halls, giving communities, giving residents the opportunity to engage, vote on priorities using a WhatsApp platform for how money raised in their wards on property rates, how it should be used. So bringing us all into the space, but also us, the residents, us, the citizens, recognizing that we have a role to play.
Mogolo, I want to put this point to you in YouTube. I'm not surprised that it's come up super early. This is Buna. Thanks for watching, Buna. Yes, we are in crisis because most of African leaders are acting like they're going to rule for centuries, allowing none of their competitors any space in political participation. All right, no filter. Take the filter off. Respond to that YouTube commenter.
I mean, I would have to agree with that. We have seen quite a bit of a challenge in inclusion of young people, inclusion of women, inclusion of people with disabilities in governance, and that in itself is a change to our governance in the continent. And during my term as minister, during that period, I was seen to be. It was said that I was the youngest cabinet minister in the continent. And there were a myriad of challenges that came with being the only one or the youngest. But what I took that as a challenge to ask other presidents to appoint young people. And I can safely say, when you look at various countries across Africa, since then, you have seen in Namibia, you have Emma, who's 23 years old. You have a few others in East Africa that are well in their 30s. So we are seeing a little bit of a change, but what we need to do is to ensure that we are lobbying for access to politics to be cheaper, because as the cost continues to rise, it is completely alienating some people to participate in politics, and we need to start working on that. But we also need to use what we know best, which is social media, which engagement, in order to really drive forward our force and ensure that we are active participants in governance. And usually I like to say, being an active participant in governance doesn't only being in politics. It means also being in civil society, being active in how decision making is done in the country generally.
There's something that I noticed, guests, and that was just over a week ago, as we were leading up to the election campaign for Uganda, and it was an animation of President Museveni dancing. And what occurred to me was that there was an awareness on the African continent that there are young people who are the voters, that there are your citizens, and you have to find some way to appeal to them. Here is an animation of President Museveni doing the Jerusalema dance. Have a look.
Jerusalema ikayalami ilondoloze uhambe nami zungangishilana Jerusalema ikayalami.
So, Madam President, I'm not going to ask you to comment on the dancing skills of an animated President Museveni, but this is the African Union Summit from February of last year. And I'm looking at these leaders. Now, I know some of them are going to be amazing leaders, and some of them are going to be average, and some of them will be mediocre, and some will be terrible. But this idea about the quality of leadership and a leadership being ready to lead a young continent, how do you address that?
Well, let me first say, when I looked at the photo of the last African Union Summit, I feel ashamed, because what it means is that we're going back to the status quo. It's the African people, like people in the African leaders accepted me, and they became colleagues, and we worked together. And I really enjoy having that. And I think they needed a woman. So it's just disappointing that we haven't yet prepared a woman to replace, to be the next one that becomes the woman president in Africa. Now, we have trained all of our young people to prepare them for leadership. Today, they are educated, they're technocrats, they're good professionals, and they're ready. It's just unfair for anyone to stay in office for 20 years or 37 years or more than that because you don't want to give up power. And I believe that the change is coming. I think our young people are demanding that they have a change. That does not say that when transition takes place, one will get a young leader who will be able to perform to the satisfaction of their people, the satisfaction of the international community. But we have enough of them ready for leadership. In my administration, I made sure I emphasized two things: young people, women, because those are the two that have been marginalized in society, and it's time for change to address those inequities.
Mayor Yvonne, I want you to react to Ikao. Ikao is from Ghana, and he makes this point. Have a listen and then come right off the back of his video. Here we go.
Undoubtedly, the future is digital, and leadership for the future can best be done by young people. This current generation of young leaders understands digitalization, and this makes us better poised to shape the future we aspire for. Let's look around. Artificial intelligence is taking over most of the things we do. Various aspects of industrialization is going digital. Now, this means that preparations for the future begins today, and that is why now more than ever it's important to promote youth in strategic leadership positions to transform our world.
I couldn't agree with him more. Technology is already leading the way, and we need our young people to have the opportunity to bring that technology to bear in the way governance is done, in the way services are delivered. But we also have an obligation at the same time, which is to make sure that those young people are prepared. It's all well and good to talk about having the youth in leadership, but where you have situations where you still have high school dropout rates, you still have poor access to education, poor access to health. So there, it's a combined approach. I would agree with the speaker just now that the digital world is a world in which the youth lead. But I would also say we have a responsibility towards those youth. It's not good enough to at them. There is still preparatory work which needs to be done alongside them.
On YouTube, there's a vibrant conversation going on. This is Quo. I'm going to put this to you, Morgano. Africa is young. It needs young leadership, young, bright minds. The elderly are scared of making mistakes, but the young know if they make a mistake, it will stick with them for a long time. Do you agree with that?
Yes and no. I agree with that. When you're a young leader, you think about it a lot. I remember during my term, people made proposals that I didn't completely agree with. I would remind them that I am a young person and I will still be held accountable for the coming 60 years, because I was appointed at 29, 30, and so I still have a long way to go, while someone might be thinking they have 5 years and accountability might not reach them in that time. So you think long and hard, because instead of being bequeathed an economy or a decision, you're actually and you're giving it to yourself and your peers in the generation, and you are going to be there to see the kind of inheritance you're giving to the next generation. So as a young leader, it just makes things a lot more different. Your decision-making process is a lot different. But I do still think is great value in having a blend of leadership, elderly and young people, because you learn from the wisdom that comes with having been in office for 10 years, for being in office for 15 years, or just generally in the public service. And you take some of those nuggets and you look for an opportunity to modernize the nuggets that come with some of that wisdom. And I really liked it. I'll give an example. When I was a minister, Rob Davis, who was minister in South Africa, and he had been a minister of trade for like 20 years. We argued a lot about our age differences, but when we came together with the new age thinking, if I may, that I brought, and he brought that experience, we ended up finding some sort of a compromise that made things work amidst all of the quarrels that we had. So we need a diverse set of voices at the table.
Audience, I want to show you something right here. This is Ellen Johnson Sirleaf's Presidential Center for Women and Development, unleashing Africa's greatest resource. That greatest resource is women. There's a whole program of networking for women leaders. This was the 2020 intake. There's a 2021 intake. You will see two of our guests here that you will recognize. Remarkable African female leaders. There are difficulties, though, not just being a good leader on the African continent, but being a female leader on the African continent. Madam President, I would love you to hear Camisa, who points out that it is not easy. Here's her comment.
I think it's very important to keep in mind that women have always assumed leadership positions, whether it is in their homes, in neighborhoods, in local governments, up to national governments. women have always been there. I myself have recently undertaken the role of foreign minister at the age of 35 in Mali. What I have noticed, and that's a question of perception, is that what is expected of women leaders is of a much higher standard of what is expected from men leaders. And that is probably because we always have to prove, we women, that there is a genuine, logical reason that explains our presence, and that probably needs to change.
Madam President, is it changing? Are you helping to change the perception of women
It
leaders on the African continent?
is changing. Not fast enough, not enough generally in terms of the quantities of people that are going to high office as women. But right now, women are claiming the leadership at all levels. And just as was correctly said, it's not just leaders at the pinnacle, not just presidents or prime ministers or ministers. There are leaders at the community levels. There are leaders in traditional society that are women leaders. There are business leaders, all over Africa that are excelling in what they do. What we need to do is to ensure that we have many, many more, that we have streams of women leaders who are preparing themselves for leadership, who have already earned leadership at whatever level they're in, but are moving on to higher levels. And we must get them into the upper chambers. We must get them as presidents, where they have the power and the influence to make change. We must get them as ministers, we must get them into parliament so that they can help to make the laws that will protect women and that will promote children. Women bring a certain sensitivity to leadership that makes them better leaders, leaders of stronger integrity, more commitment, more empathy, more humanity. And at the same time, women can also be tough. Women can make hard decisions and don't care if they're not popular when those decisions are taken. That's the good part about women, that you can do them both. You can be balanced all the way.
I feel the toughness, the power sort of emanating off the screen as all three of you are being on the stream today together. Mary Yvonne, when are you going to be president?
I'm focusing right now on running a city, which is a huge job. It represents 30% of our economy, 15% of our population. So I think let's fix the city. That was the one place that Madam Sirleaf missed out. We need women in local government leadership. It's a critical gap on the African continent.
Yeah, true.
That was a typical politician's answer. She didn't say I wasn't running for president. She didn't say that. Mogolo, I know you're laughing there. One piece of advice for another young politician or young leader that you know they would find invaluable in a sentence, what would that advice be?
Youth leadership is African. We have been made to believe youth leadership is an African, and I have challenged that over and over again. You look at the presidents, founding fathers, mothers of Africa who were revolutionaries. They were in their 20s, in their 30s. And some of them are still there as presidents, and they started when they were young. So if you have any doubt that you belong, it is your time, you can contribute, take away that doubt, because youth leadership is African, and we can challenge it. We can participate. You look for a mentor like Madam President here that can help you in navigating the streets of politics, because they are ruthless and you need to be tactful in order to become successful. And just be laser focused and learn the ropes And watch out for the landmines. I know you said one line, but I feel like there's more.
Oh my goodness. This is what happens when you're surrounded by
Yeah.
politicians and leaders. Madam President, thank you very much. Madam Mayor, thank you. Vugolo, thank you so much. I'm looking forward to when you will be president as well. Have a look here on my laptop, everybody. A couple of places for you to visit. I know you've been inspired by this conversation. Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, Presidential Center for Women and Development. Look it up. Do you think you might make the cut for 2022? And then, of course, this is where we started with the Ibrahim Index of African Governance. You can check out your country or a country that you're interested in, even if you're not on the African continent. That wraps up our conversation for today. Thanks for watching. See you next time.